Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Make Your Business More Profitable with an Inclusive Workforce. My name is Corinne Mallard with the New Brunswick Employer Support Services. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping rules. So the microphone and camera will be turned off during the presentation. However, we will have the chat function open if you have any questions throughout, and then we'll open the floor after the presentation if you have questions. And we are recording this video and it will be shared on the NBESS website after the presentation. Now, without further ado, welcome our speaker for today, Christine Anting with the New Brunswick Employer Support Services.
Merci, Karine. Thank you, Karine. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for participating at this today's webinar. The intent of this webinar is to share perspective about bringing your workforce to the next level. We have different people participating in the webinar this afternoon in terms of the audience. We have agencies that work directly with persons with disability, and we also have employers. But the whole idea of the presentation is to give a perspective about where we're coming from with the whole concept of hiring a person with disability. Why could it be interesting for employers? And as well for agencies is to provide tools as well, though, in terms of having a better understanding about the businesses and how to present the whole concept to employers. So before I start my presentation, we'll start with a short video. Please bear with me. This is a new presentation format. It's supposed to be a little bit more sexy than the previous one. So I hope you will enjoy our presentation this afternoon. But we'll start with a short video. And I'll get back shortly. It's only a minute. All right, so once again, thank you very much for participating in this webinar this afternoon. And thanks for Karine for the introduction part. As she said, my name is Christine Anting. I'm the manager of the New Brunswick Employer Support Services. Before we go any further, I just want to give you a little bit perspective about who we are, what do we do for a living, and before I start my whole presentation. So technically, the New Brunswick Employer Support Services is a program being funded by the province of New Brunswick and the federal government through the labor market agreement. And our mandate is to promote diversity and inclusion, specifically in regards to persons with disability with New Brunswick employers across the province. We are not client-based. We work mainly with employers throughout the province. What we do, we offer free bilingual services, and we have three main services that we offer to employers. We help employers in terms of recruitment, in terms of consultation and training as well, on all topics related to the whole concept of hiring a person with disability. Now, as I mentioned, we're not client-based. We only work with employers. So therefore, we work with specialized agencies throughout the province that are really specialized in working with persons with disability when it's time to support and help an employer in regards to recruitment, hiring, and supervision of persons with disability. So the way it works, technically, we sell the business case, we sell the concept of employers about, the whole concept, why does it make sense for employers? And we provide as much tool as possible to the employers in regards to their hiring, recruitment, supervision, and so on. And when an employer is ready, willing, and capable, feel capable of hiring a person with a disability, and they fully understand the whole business case, then we share the information of employers with agencies that will do their magic. They are the specialized one working directly with person with disability. And they will assist the employers in making sure that we have the perfect match between the required skill sets that employers are looking for and a person with a disability in order to make sure that we have a win-win situation. So in a nutshell, our office is based out of Dieppe, New Brunswick, of course. We cover the whole province. And as I said, free of charge, bilingual. My English is terrible. I really apologize for that. But having said that, we are supposed to be bilingual and we're offering a service. I think that people could easily understand where we're coming from with this. So having said that, the intent of the business, the webinar this afternoon is to talk to about the whole concept, what's taking place with employers, why employers are in business, why do they sell a service and a product, and what's the most important resources for that. So I want to talk a little bit more before I go into the further details about the whole concept of hiring, what's taking place with employers across the province. So I guess, you know, in all employers throughout the province fully understand the value of their people. And as a matter of fact, all employers fully understand that the most important resources in order to be successful is to find the right employees to recruit and retain. And this is the name of the game that is taking place right now. But the issue is with a lot of employers, especially with the whole context in New Brunswick, and I would say across the country, is that there are some many challenges for employers, especially in regards to recruitment and retaining of employees. Why is that? Well, there's many reasons, but most importantly, we're talking about an aging population, the exodus of workers elsewhere in this country and in the world as well. I do have friends from north of New Brunswick that used to work in the oil sands in Fort McMurray not long ago, but now they work in Africa, they work all over the world. Workers are moving, you know, they are more flexible in terms of being able to go where the work is. So, you know, it creates a lot of pressure on New Brunswick employers to recruit and retain. And as well, one of the biggest issues that we have is the lack of skilled workers. You know, there's still, even if we have people available, sometimes it's the skill that we're missing. And the Economic Council of New Brunswick in the last 15 years, when they do their survey through their membership in regards to the top priorities or challenges facing companies or employers across the province, well, the lack of skilled labor came for the last 15 years in the 3 top priorities that employers are dealing with across the province. This is an important aspect to take in consideration because, you know, there's a lot of projects, there's a lot of companies that right now, as we're speaking, have to put some expansion project on the back burner because of the lack of skilled workers. But the most important aspect I want to bring to your attention, and I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but I just want to picture the whole situation about, you know, what is taking place and what will take place in the next couple of years. If we feel that the employers throughout the province have been dealing with major challenges in terms of recruitment and retention, it was just the tip of the iceberg, if I may call it this way. In the next 5 to 6 years to now, the issue is going to get even greater and bigger for a lot of employers across the province. And it has to do with the baby boomers. You know, in 2016, for instance, you know, it was the first time ever that the share of seniors exceeded the share of children. You know, the youth coming into the workplace and the population getting older. So for the longest time, though, there was more youth people than older people. But now the pyramid, you know, the age pyramid changed dramatically. And in 2016, for the first time, it started exceeding the seniors versus the youth. And as you can see on the graph, the numbers are getting even higher in the years to come. And that will have a great impact on and put a lot more pressure on recruitment retention for a lot of employers. As well, though, as you can see on the graph here, the aging population by province, you know, we're going to have a greater shortage in the years to come because, you know, like if you look at the working age or the age of 14 and younger coming in, as opposed to the 16 years and older going out of the workplace, there's a gap of 5%. So, you know, there's if for 10,000, the next 10,000 people coming out of the workforce that are part of the baby boomers, there's only 5,000 of them coming in. And those numbers are not exact. It's a lot greater than that over the period of 6 to 7 years. We're talking about a lack of over 16,000, the deficit will be about 16,000 less people in the workplace. On top of the issues that we're already dealing right now, employers throughout the province. So how do we handle that, and how do we take care of that in order to make sure that employers can remain competitive, can maintain their workforce in place in order to be productive and so on? That's the greatest challenge. As well, this graph, though, says it all about as well. This is national, by the way. In 1966, the working age group of between 15 to 24 years of age, where we're talking about 3.3 million individuals, as opposed to 55 to 64, 1.5. And if you look at 2016, this is where the numbers starts making sense. I wouldn't say making sense, but that's where the numbers start being scary a little bit, especially in regards to employers that needs to recruit and retain employees. So the age pyramid is changing, and if employers across the province felt that they were having some issues in the past to find the right employees, or have recruiting, in general, this was just the tip of the iceberg, because the years to come will be even greater. And this is at the national level, and the difference in 2016, by the way, when you look at the numbers, New Brunswick is one of the population that is the older across every provinces across the country. So the gap between the working age groups is even greater in New Brunswick. I wish it would be like this. The proportion would be the same as it is at the national level, but the scary part, it's even greater for New Brunswick. As we're speaking, we're doing research in terms of compiling all those specific numbers. And in future webinars, we'll be able to share with you specific numbers. But this gave us a picture about the iceberg coming our way. And we've seen nothing yet, not at all. So we're talking about, labor shortages, issues that employers are dealing with, and what we're suggesting, though, we're suggesting ways of fixing it. There is a problem out there, and there is ways of doing it. And it's quite simple. It's by adding a new workforce and recruit the best to be the best. And this is what we're talking about. This is what we would like to preach this afternoon. And we'll give you a good perspective about, how to do that in the future. Short video again. Let me come back in a minute and a half. So let's talk about the ability factor. Let's talk about, an untapped talent pool. Let's talk about, our percentage of the population that are eager, like everybody else, to contribute and participate into this local economy and support businesses and participate in the success of employers across the province. Yes, we're talking about the new workforce and a skilled workforce as well. A lot of governments over the years, though, everybody's talking about immigrations to fill the gaps for, the lack of skilled workers and just workers in general. It is part of the solution. And don't get me wrong, I think that immigration is definitely part of the solution, but it is not the solution. There is an actual incredible talent pool in New Brunswick that is really, really interesting, that is being overlooked by so many people. As you can see on the screen, though, in New Brunswick, we're talking about 12.3% of the working age populations are individuals with a disability. We're talking about over 60,000 people throughout the province, bilingual, French, Anglophone, different type of disabilities with different type of background, different type of skill sets and so on, that are out there, ready, willing, and capable of contributing to the success of this new era that we're talking about, where we're going to revolutionize the workforce. They are eager to contribute, eager to be part of the success of all employers across the province. Well, most of those people, 12.3% of that population, usually it's in either overlooked and underutilized. Usually it's unemployed or underemployed. So we're talking about, a big work pool that is available out there, and most of them, which is pretty interesting when you look at the figures, more than half of persons with a disability have a high school diploma, and a third of them have a post-secondary degree. So therefore, their profile in terms of education is not necessarily different than anybody else. So in terms of the quality of that work pool, it is just as good as anybody else. And to put more emphasis on that labor pool that is available out there, that untapped talent pool, I'd like to talk about the business case, because we did articulate the business case where we can demonstrate the actual benefits for employers to start considering person with disability to fill the gap that they have within the organization, especially in terms of recruitment. So why should you hire as an employer a person with a disability? Well, the easy answer, it's quite simple, because it just makes sense. But more than that, it makes more than sense. There is an actual business case. There are some serious competitive advantage for employers across the province to consider. We're talking about higher performance and productivity, improved attendance and good safety rating, reduced turnover rates, and we're talking about innovation and capacity to adapt. Those are the four big elements of the competitive advantage for employers to consider hiring a person with a disability within their workplace. So I'll go a little bit in details. In terms of higher performance and productivity, some studies shows from major company, national, or I should say international big companies and shop like DuPont and Walgreens. In their survey that they've done internally, they realize that persons with disability are not less productive. Actually, it's totally the opposite. They are as productive as everybody else, and sometimes even more productive than anybody else. Those are not numbers that we came up with, but those are numbers that DuPont and Walgreens, those multinational companies down in the States, came up with their actual survey that they've done internally. So it brings a different perspective. It's not just me telling you that those person with disability have a higher performance. It is an actual fact. And we took that information in a research that was done through Deloitte and Touch, that they did that 3 years ago. And they are monitoring in North America, they are still monitoring that aspect of high performance and productivity for a person with disability, because they would like to bring actually to the attention of every employer is that they are as productive as everybody else. So those numbers and stats are something to really consider. Person with disability are not less productive. That doesn't make any sense. Improved work attendance and good safety ratings. Once again, as per DuPont, 90% of workers with a disability have an average or better safety rating, and 86% of employees with a disability had an average or better rate of work attendance. So when we ask, as an employer perspective, usually when we're not too familiar with the conditions of a person with disability, it's a lot easy to make free comments or free observation that maybe sometimes when you look into it, it's not necessarily the case. But the fact of the matter is that their work attendance is as good as everybody else. And safety ratings, I would go as far, though, my organization is working right now with WorkSafe New Brunswick to try to compound numbers. One of the things that is really, really, really interesting about safety ratings, a lot of employers get to know that quite easily when they start recruiting and hiring person with disabilities, that person with disabilities have abilities and they have their limits as well. And the beauty is that they know their limit, they know their safety, and because of the fact that they know their limit, they have a tendency of staying within their limit in their safety zone, if I may call it this way. So they do have their abilities, but as well, though, they understand and they fully know their limit. So when do an accident usually happen at work is when somebody gets outside of their comfort zone. And I've worked for WorkSafe in the past, and I know those numbers. When an accident happened is that when somebody went outside of their comfort zone. And usually that's where accident happen. In regards to a person with disability, the beauty is that since they know their limit, they will not get out of that zone. And most likely, you'll find less accident happening with a person with disability within your work site as opposed to a person without a disability. Now, we all know that the safety ratings is a crucial part of a lot of employers across the province, especially with the situation happening with WorkSafe New Brunswick, with the increase of the rates for the employers. And once again, I don't want to sound too scary, but this is just the tip of the iceberg because, they're talking about another major increase for next year and the years to come because they need to capitalize, on the fund in order to pay for the injured workers across the province. But having said that, all the costs for employers are directly, and the price that employers pay for WorkSafe are directly related to the cost of the claims that they have individually. That's one of the elements that they take into consideration to come up with numbers for employers. That's how WorkSafe does it. But having said that, if you can control the increase of accident by reducing your costs related to the accident, by hiring person with disability, you're helping yourself in the same way. You will be helping yourself because the numbers will get lower because it's proven and it's known, and we'll have specific numbers once again with the research we're doing with WorkSafe New Brunswick really soon. But based on the actual surveys that were done by some employers in North America, for instance, DuPont in this particular case, shows and demonstrate that the safety rating is a lot better and the cost related to WorkSafe should be lower because of the fact that they should be most likely have less accident in the workplace. Turnover rates is one of the key elements that we like to put the emphasis on. A lot of employers are dealing with major turnover rates, and it's really costly for a lot of employers across the province. And some of the employers knows exactly what is their cost to recruit and train one employee. And I usually use an example of an employer that I've been working with over the past few years, is the owner of several Tim Hortons in Toronto. And the gentleman over the years, though, had a turnover rate of close to 100% to maintain, within his 5 or 6 Tim Hortons he has in Toronto, if I recall. Turnover rates close to 100%. And he calculated that his turnover cost was about $3,500 average per individual. So let's work on the math just for the fun of it. Let's say that he has over 100 employees at $3,500 each. Says it all about, how much does it cost for him on a yearly basis just to recruit and train a new employee. But since he had a major turnover rates and he had problems to recruit, actually not just retain, but recruit, he chose to hire a person with a disability a few years ago. He figured, I have nothing to lose. I'm desperate to recruit. Let's give it a try. You look at what the skill sets the individual had to offer, and he put the person in question in a position to succeed. He matched the required skill sets that the person had to offer with what he was looking for, and gave a chance to the individual. And he soon realized, the owner of the Tim Horton is like, okay, that person is as productive as everybody else, a person without a disability. I matched the skill sets, making sure that he was in a good situation, realized that the person was doing a good job, his performance was as good as everybody else, but most importantly, the person stayed on. And he started to realize, like, okay, this is something quite interesting, though. So the owner of those several Tim Hortons in Toronto start recruiting more and more individuals with a disability. At one point in time, he had over 30% of his whole staff that were individuals with a disability. And over a period of 1 year, the turnover rate for that 30% of his whole team, he calculated that the turnover rate was no longer 100% like everybody else, but at 5%. So let's talk about turnover rates. Every time I meet an employer, one of the key elements that I start asking employers, what are the issues in terms of recruitment, retention, and so on, I always ask about, turnover, like, is it an issue, and what's taking place, and so on. And when I tell them that a person with a disability usually have a tendency, those are the stats, I'm not inventing them, but have the tendency of staying 2.5 times longer in a position as opposed to somebody else, it says a lot of things for an employer. Let's talk about return on the investment. A lot of employers feels that it's worthwhile investing in hiring a person with a disability, making sure that the person is trained properly, because the person usually, would stay usually based on stat 2.5 times longer. So there is a big return on the investment. So for the competitive advantage, this is one of the key elements that we strongly believe that employers can benefit out of it. But I can assure you that the owner of several Tim Hortons in Toronto, on top of, owning a money-making machine, because, those printing, I call it a printing shop for money, those Tim Hortons, but on top of that, he was making money by hiring a person with disability as well. And it was really amazing. And this gentleman keeps talking about, the whole benefits. His name is Mark Wafer. If you Google him, you surf on the internet, you'll find information about this gentleman, Mark Wafer. And what he has to say about the whole situation is just mind-blowing in terms of dollars and cents and in terms of morale as well within his Tim Hortons. Another key element is innovation and capacity to adapt. A lot of employers and a lot of people, don't fully understand the capacity of persons with disability to face challenges on a daily basis. Think about it for a moment. A person with a disability wake up in the morning and have to deal with situation on a daily basis every day. Every day they have to deal with it. And yet they go through their daily life like everybody else. They make their adjustment in order to make sure that they can go through those obstacles that they may be facing and so on. But the fact of the matter is that that situation that they have to go through and they have to deal with obstacles on a daily basis as well bring another perspective, the perspective of looking at a situation differently. They are more open and willing to deal with challenges. They promote openness, change, and progress as well. They cannot just sit in front of an obstacle and say, well, you know what, I can do it, and it's not going to happen. they have to find ways of overcoming those obstacles. And that's the beauty about hiring a person with disability, especially when you bring a person like that within your workplace. It's a what's the proper word in English? And I apologize, but it's something that, you know, will influence the attitude of everybody in their surroundings, especially because the way they think, they will not just accept and obstacles, but they will fight and they will look at doing things differently. And the concept of thinking outside the box, that's what they bring within an organization. So they can increase, by saying that, they increase the creativity of your workplace and avoid ending up with homogeneous groups. If we all think alike and we have to deal and face a situation within a workplace, most likely, you know, we're going to have some challenges in terms of coming up with solutions. But when you bring different perspective, and especially with individual persons with disability, that they have the capacity to adapt and innovate, it brings an interesting dynamic within the workplace. This is something that is really, really interesting for employers to start considering, because most likely you know, because we're working right now in a market that is worldwide. So for a lot of employers, they need to innovate, they need to adapt, they need to change, and it starts with your staff, within your employees. So when you have individuals that have that capacity of doing so, brings an interesting perspective. I have to give you a little story about innovation and capacity to adapt with. The beauty about, you know, technology these days is that, you know, technology, assistive technology, I would say, brought down a lot of barriers for a person with disability. But there's so many tools, quite interesting these days. I cannot say the name of the company, but there's a company in New Brunswick that are working computer programming, and they hired someone that couldn't type, and they had to use a voice over text. And what happened, though, we downloaded the software on the computer to allow the individual to do their work. So he's dictating to his computer what the computer should be typing or whatsoever. These days, technology is so much advanced as opposed to 10, 15, and 20 years ago. The percentage of errors when it's voice over text now these days is less than 2.5%. Actually, the margin of error when you use those type of softwares is a lot less than when you're typing on the actual keyboard. And the beauty as well, though, is that you increase productivity as well, because usually somebody who's really good at typing would probably go up to 75, 80 words a minute. Not me, because I only type with 2 fingers. But most likely, most general population, 78, 75 words per minute. That's what usually we do on the keyboard. But that new software that we brought in for a specific individual working in a specific place, and it was voice over text, we realized that the speed would allow the individual to go to up to 140 words per minute. So in terms of innovation, in terms of productivity, it brought a different perspective. So the employer, when he was so pleased when we brought in this softwares to assist the individuals, but at the same time, the employer was so impressed. He says, "Wow, you know, this software, this application is just incredible. Is there any way, shape, or form I could use it to the rest of my staff? I don't have any disability." Actually, there was nothing that could prevent the employers. Actually, we strongly encourage the employer to look into it. So what he did, though, now everybody has the voice over text, and everybody increased their productivity in terms of typing between 70 words per minute up to 140 words a minute. And that was because we brought in the workplace, a person with a disability with a software to assist the individuals. But the software was designed originally for a person with disability, and now everybody else is using it, and everybody else is taking advantage of it. So let's talk about innovation. Let's talk about productivity. It's amazing when you think about, person with disability, when you bring person within your workplace, the actual benefits can barely be calculated individually, because we're talking about a great picture, and there's an actual lot of benefits for employers across the province. Having said that, there are some things that a lot of employers, feel that I talked to you a little bit about, the issue that employers are dealing with the workplace, the lack of skilled workers and so on. I talk about, the labor pool that we have here in terms of person with disability that represent over 60,000 people in New Brunswick, eager, willing, and capable of contributing to success of your respective organization. I talk about actual benefits as well, and I could go forever in terms of benefits, but for this webinar, I want to narrow it down as much as possible. But we can talk about all those things, but at the same time, it's there's still some barriers for a lot of employers, and we're not blaming employers. It's like, and not just employers, but everybody who's a little bit reluctant in dealing and working with person with disability. A lot of time we came to the conclusion it's the fear of the unknown, and it's okay. It just makes sense. We get it though. Even if we work in this field, we fully understand. But there's a lot of employers things, and I'll go through some of the elements that I already talked about. Some of the fear that employers have has to do with accommodation. Hiring a person with a disability, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg in terms of accommodation and so on. Well, most cases, persons with a disability can accommodate themselves by developing techniques or finding solutions while working. And most of them already have their own personal accommodation. Think about it for a moment. And when there is accommodation, the average is between $0 to $600. And actually the accommodation cost, if there is any, is no different than the actual accommodation that an employer will give to their actual employees. So there is no such things as, there should not be such thing as fear about accommodation, because, most of the time, individual, if they need any accommodation, they have their own. If there are some costs, barely minimum, and there's actual assistance with the province of New Brunswick to support an employer as an individual in regards to accommodation as well for the work. So, therefore, that should not be a fear. Health and safety, I talked to you a little bit about health and safety. As I said, the cost related to health and safety by hiring a person with disability usually should be down the road a lot less than hiring anybody else, because of the fact that they know the limit more than anybody else, and they will not get out of their limit. Physically, for some of them, it's physically impossible to do something out of their limitations. So therefore, they will stay within where they have control on the surrounding, what's taking place, and what they can do. One of the biggest concerns as well that employers, and the fear of the unknown, one of the things that employers really, really worried about is that, oh no, I'm not going to hire a person with a disability because there are some legal costs related to hiring. Because if something happened and I need to let the person go, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg, and I'm going to have human rights on my back and so on. Well, you know what? The fact of the matter is that for an employer, you should not be treating a person with a disability in no different way that you are treating a person without a disability. And we're bringing this to the most simple, basic perspective, but the fact of the matter is, it is the case. As an employer, you can expect performance from a person with a disability and a person without a disability. For performance issues, you can let go a person. Mind you, as an employer, you do have to provide the accommodation of the tools that the individual needs in order to perform up to your expectation. But at the same time, though, providing accommodation and the tools to individuals so that they can perform. A lot of employers think that it's an expenditure, but in reality, it's an investment for you as an employer so that you can benefit from it down the road. And once the tools are in place, if the person cannot perform up to your satisfaction, you can let the person go like everybody else. As I said early on, You should not treat a person with a disability in no different way than you would treat anybody else. So this is a misconception from a lot of individual when it regards to hiring person with disability. And it's really important to address that and talk about it, because it doesn't have, it's not complicated, and we should not make it complicated. At the end of the day, you have to treat people in no different way. So I talk a little bit about, the labor situation. I talk about, this new workforce. I talk about the business case. I talk a little bit about the barriers. I want to move forward a little bit because we're getting close to the end of this presentation, and I want to talk about individuals that did succeed in life, and why they succeed in life is at one point in time, people believe in their abilities. They did not focus on their disabilities. I always finish my presentation, excuse me, with a list of individuals that did succeed in life. And as you can see on the screen, you have all kinds of people. Michael J. Fox, Parkinson's disease. Everybody knows the Back to the Future guy. Whoopi Goldberg, dyslexia. Bill Clinton, hearing impairment. And I guess, well, that's maybe a disability, but he did have other abilities. But actually, if there's no politician watching the screen, I think Bill Clinton, hearing impairment, must be a prerequisite to be in politics. I'm just kidding. But having said that, nevertheless, even if he had an impairment, he was able to become president of the United States. Think about it. Demi Lovato, for the younger generation listening to the webinar, mental health, Monet, impaired vision. Stephen Hawking, think about it. We just lost Stephen Hawking a few months ago, but one of the greatest minds we had on this planet. Everybody was making fun of the way he was talking through synthesizer, like about his voice, but one of the greatest minds we had on this planet, and could barely communicate, but managed and did some phenomenal research on physics and so on, like greatest mind. Elton John, who doesn't know Elton John? Epileptic. Michael Phelps, the swimmer from the States, HD. And I always finish with Bill Gates. Think about it for a moment. One of the richest men on the planet, Bill Gates, who owned Microsoft, Asperger's syndrome. And I keep saying to employers when I meet them on an individual basis or group settings, which one of you as an employer can say no to the next Bill Gates walking through the door at your place who's looking for a job? Which one of you? So the point here is, like, if we pay attention to the abilities that the individual has to offer as opposed to their disabilities, they're most likely, you'll find that those individuals can contribute to the success of your organization like everybody else. It's always a matter of looking for the abilities and coming up with the required skill sets that you as an employer are looking for, and the person as well. And if the person happens to have a disability, who cares? At the end of the day, though, they have the abilities that you're looking for. If we can do the match, that's what employers should be looking at. And it's, this is what I need for me as an employer to continue being successful. I need those required skill sets. And everything else, if the person has a disability, who cares? As I said, could be religion, it could be ethnicity or whatsoever. It's no different. It's a matter of making sure that we have the required skill sets with what the individual has to offer. Now, having said that, getting to the end, this was a short version of our webinar about the business case. Having said this, it may sound easy for some people, a little bit complicated, because how do we communicate? How do we do this? How do we do that? How do we deal with person with disability through the whole recruitment, hiring, and supervision process? The New Brunswick Employer Support Services, this is a screenshot of our website. We developed a series of resources for employers across the province. Those are free of charge. You can download that information on our website, but you can also reach us so that we can provide you specific training for your HR personnel, for your supervisors, managers. It could be colleagues at work. We're talking about specific disabilities, because there's, how do you communicate with a person who has a hearing loss? there are different ways, different tools that we can share with you to assist you, because we want to bring down the barriers, you know, and the fear of the unknown. Well, let's put it this way. We came up with those tools in order to palliate the fear of the unknown and the fact that a lot of individuals, it's not their fault, they know how to handle the situation. So we developed those series of tools, and we strongly encourage you as employers and even agencies that are participating in the webinar this afternoon to go through those tools and to get in contact with us, because we could, as I said, in collaboration with a lot of specialized agencies, we don't have the answers. We'll get the answers for you in terms of specifics or training or whatsoever. And as well, you will find on our website all the webinars that we developed over the years. They are being recorded, and they will be put on our website for you to view in the future. Now, having said that, short video, final words after that. Merci.
Good morning, Bob.
Morning there, man. Morning, Alice!
There's no need to be awkward.
Poor Bob. Like so many of us, he just doesn't know how to interact with people with disabilities.
It's pretty easy, really. People with disabilities are people first.
We need the same things that every person needs, like respect.
Good morning, everyone.
Attention! Okay. Maybe we need to be more specific.
The easiest way to show respect is to focus on the person, not the disability. It's okay. You'll get the hang of it.
One easy way to focus on the person is to watch the person signing and not their interpreter.
Or their companion.
It's really cool that you'd like to help, but do us both a favor and please ask me first. What you think might be helping?
I got you.
Wait, ah! Oh no, might actually not.
If you'd like to offer me help, let me hold on to your elbow. Don't take mine.
Hey, would you like to take mine?
Sure.
Assistive devices help us to live our lives. They're really important and really personal.
Grabbing them only makes it weird for everyone.
What? Please only touch our devices and service animals if we've given you permission. And don't take it personally if I ask you not to. Remember that my service animal helps me all the time. Neither of us would like it if we were separated.
Remember, we make our own decisions. We sign documents, vote, volunteer, work, and pay taxes.
We get married.
So don't address me just because I have a great smile.
Just because I'm blind
May I help you?
does not mean I'm deaf.
I don't know. I think he said he was going to come. Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean I'm blind.
And just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't sweep you off your feet.
So take a deep breath. Relax. We don't bite.
Unless we're really hungry.
Hello there, ladies. How are you?
Hello. And if you're not sure what to do, just ask.
Hi, would you still like to see a menu?
No thanks, but can you please read it to me?
Sure, definitely.
Just treat us the way you would want to be treated, and we'll all be okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alice.
Right.
Awkward no more. Nice.
I don't know about you guys, but every time I see this video, you know, for me it's so interesting because, you know, it talks about sorry about this. It talks about the whole concept that it doesn't have to be complicated. It's really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's good old sense, you know, ask questions as an employer. But the whole thing is that persons with disability can contribute like everybody else. They have the will, they pay taxes, they can vote, they can do everything like everybody else. The whole concept of hiring is making sure that we can match the required skill sets that you as an employer are looking for with a person with a disability. So what we're suggesting, we talk about the actual benefits. I could probably go in further details if you like me, if you like me to go in further details. So I invite you to contact us, you know, individual basis. We'll be more than pleased to provide further details. But the whole point of what I'm saying is that as an employer, as an organization, if you want more information or you want to make sure that we can contribute to your success, you can share with us the job postings that you have within your company. What we'll do, we'll share with all those specialized agencies that we work with throughout the province. There are 28 of them that are being subsidized or funded the same way as my program here, the New Brunswick Employee Support Services. They are based throughout the province, and they are the best of the best. They know how to work with person with disability. They know how to coach. They know how to support them, and they know how to connect employers with person with disability. If, as an employer, if you're asking for a pink Cadillac with green dots, well, basically, that's what we should be giving you. And agencies throughout the province fully understand that it has to do with matching the skill sets. You may ask for a pink Cadillac with green dots, and we may end up with the pink Cadillac with green dots with maybe a different shade of green sometimes. But usually, if there is accommodation required or needed, this is where, you know, the accommodation will kick in. But at the end of the day, though, the abilities you're looking for, this is what we'll try to give you. So I hope overall you enjoyed the webinar this afternoon. Before I say the final words, I strongly encourage any one of you, if you have any questions, please use the chat, and my colleague Karine will bring them forward to my attention, so I'll try to respond. But I hope that you enjoyed the webinar this afternoon. It was a matter for us to give the general perspective about where employers are coming from, where they at in terms of challenges, and what can we bring in terms of solutions to support employers and the New Brunswick economy as a whole. We have a labor force here. We strongly understand and believe that, yes, immigration is part of the solution to fill those gaps in the workplace, but at the same time, it's not just the solution. There are some other practical solutions out there are available, eager, willing, loyal employees, and that will bring some actual benefits to your organization. So I hope you enjoyed the webinar this afternoon. You can contact us. Please do so either via email, Facebook, on our website, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And we'll be more than pleased to answer any of the questions, concerns that you may have. And we'll put you in contact with one of those specialized agencies if you have any specific needs and you would like to make the next move by becoming even more diversified and inclusive employer. And if you would like to get the assistance of one of the agencies that could identify a person for you, let us know and we'll put you in contact. But if you need more information about providing the tools to you as an employer to get the know-how about hiring, recruiting, supervising, and so on, please give us a call. We'll be more than pleased to help. On that note, thank you very much for your attention this afternoon. And we'll, on our website next week, we'll have a list of the upcoming webinars to come with the different dates. We have some interesting subject matter coming up in the next couple of months. So I invite you guys either to go on our Facebook page, on our website. We will post all the upcoming webinar in the future. On that note, merci beaucoup, thank you very much, and have a good day.